wine taking centuries of history to just express themselves in everything is there, you know.
Could you do that again? No, there's a sound that came with that, but anyway.
Yeah, because you go and dance it and everything. It's super passionate. It's super passionate.
Okay, we are at 4 minutes past, which seems to be the magical starting time, and this is being recorded being recorded and also being live streamed to YouTube. So just for everyone to know. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share the screen and do an official introduction, and we're going to get going. So let's do that now. Welcome. This is Widen Your Gaze Friday. I'm so happy everyone could be here today. I'm very excited about today's episode. And not that I'm going to have an episode. I'm saving that for later, but I'm excited today about our guest speaker. And we are, what day is it today? It is the 11th of December. And yeah, Christmas is right around the corner. And I'm thinking I'm going to wait till the 22nd before I get my Christmas gifts. I don't know. I feel like playing it on the edge and whatnot, just to add to that stress. I am Luc Bouchard. I am your host for today. And the point to widen your gaze is really about seeing the bigger picture. So I bring subject matter experts in to give a different perspective. And today we're having John. And you know, I'm just going to not try and say your last name because I know I'm going to choke on it because I always do. So your last name, doesn't matter, buddy.
Valdivia.
Yeah, right. No, I still wouldn't get that. Just ask some of the other people on the call about pronouncing the names and whatnot. And John does live in Spain. He wears many different hats. And John and I have known each other for, we thought about 4 years now. We've done
5
years. That's right. Yeah. And so he's going to talk about Yoga Nidra. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to John.
Thank you, sir. Is there a way that I can share my screen and do a bit of a presentation?
I gave you a presenter, so you should be at the bottom.
Yeah. I can share my screen, and I'm going to try. So if you see this,
yes, you do. Yep.
Do you also see me, or do you have to cope only with my boring slides?
I'm seeing your power. You were seeing actually all your slide deck on the right or on the left on that. So you want to probably go into presenter mode.
Presenter mode. Okay, but you can still see my face and you can see me present, right?
Nope. Well, wait. Keep talking.
Okay. I'm testing.
Yeah, there it comes in. It comes in now when you're on speaker view. So.
Okay, beautiful, fantastic. Okay, well, first of all, Luke, thank you very much for providing this space, and thank you everybody who's has come to the call today. And yeah, I feel humbled and honored to be sharing a few things that I have learned over the last few months about a type of meditation that I think is very unique and is very elegant and super sophisticated and very relaxing and all of the above. And it has been a sort of saving grace for me when the whole pandemic started. I can tell you that I was living in a very small flat. I was dedicating myself to projecting movies on the wall, as you can see on the top right. Marlon Brando and the like. My dog on the left was completely bored out of his mind because we couldn't get away. We couldn't get out, for like 3 months in Spain. Movements were very restricted, and also there was, the summer of Andalusia, close to 40 degrees. So it has been a tough year for many of us. I don't think I'm disclosing anything very original. Everybody has been dealing with this in different ways, also depending on how your countries have been regulating the whole thing. But just a few pictures to let you know that I lost my main source of income. I have several sources of income, but the main one, I lost it to COVID. So there was a lot of uncertainty. I was sharing a very small flat with my then partner, who I believe has been also one of one of the speakers on this show
She
before?
has. Yeah,
Yeah,
she was.
yeah. She was here as well.
On
Brilliant.
yoga, the benefits of yoga. Yeah.
Brilliant. The dog and what have you, and I was noticing that I was feeling a bit like a pressure cooker, my intellectual mind was coping with it very well. I was creating my map, I was creating my options. I kind of knew what was going on, and in as much as anybody could. But I wasn't dealing with it very well at the emotional level. I was feeling more and more and more tense, more edgy. I was getting blocked when it came to make decisions. I found myself escaping into lots of watching TV, into being, not a very pleasant person to be around. And at the same time, I wasn't having a very good time with myself. I remember kind of waking up one day and realizing, it is not normal to live with such a level of tension. It's not healthy. It's not how our systems were supposed to run, So because I am well connected with the yoga world, and my then partner is also a yoga instructor, and I was not a yogi myself, but I had, kind of the tools and the knowledge around me. And I'm also a certified life coach. So I tend to be a bit proactive when it comes to learning techniques and learning things that can aid my growth or my life. I decided to practice with Yoga Nidra, which I knew from before. I had tried it a few times randomly. But I decided to give it a very good go. And since I didn't have anything better to do, and I have my microphones at home, I run a small sound production company. I decided to take some trainings to record my own scripts because I wanted to work on my own stuff. And that kind of opened a door that took me to a beautiful world. And I hope to share some of that world today with you, and with the hope that I do it justice, and with the hope that it's useful to you. I think also Luke will remember that when I started doing this, I kind of told him, dude, I'm going to be silent for a while. I'm just running like 100 per hour. And I'm going to try and disconnect from the screen and not join any Zoom calls. I need to go inward and relax. I think I was silent for like a month. Wasn't that correct, Luke?
Yeah, it was a serious reset on your part about on that.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And it definitely changed my life. I think I've crossed I've turned the page. I'm the same man, but I found reliable ways to calm myself down, to detach from my day-to-day drama and situation. I am not the Dalai Lama at the moment, but I have managed to create a certain buffer and a certain equanimity. It's not perfect, but I don't know honestly how could I have done with all of the personal drama and situation of the last 6 months if it wasn't because I had a reliable meditation practice. So without further ado, sorry, my throat is just giving me a bit of trouble. So what is Yoga Nidra and why should you care? I've tried to touch upon what it has done for me just briefly, but let me just give you a brief description of the practice or where it comes from, a bit of the context. Yoga Nidra is a recent technique. It was developed, or let's say perfectioned, or taken to the next level, made standard by this gentleman on the left, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, a name that I had never heard before until last summer. And this guy made a number of discoveries when he was studying yoga in his ashram, and he also had students. And for the most part, he started his discoveries while doing night shifts. He was in charge of, guarding over the youngsters in the ashram and keeping awake in case anything happened, just keeping control of things. And he had this habit of playing tapes with either mantras or Vedic teachings, part of what he needed to study to progress in his life as a yogi. And he started observing that some of the students that he was invigilating had never been exposed to these mantras and these teachings. But when it came time to explain these things to them in class, they kind of already knew them. They could follow along with the songs. They could follow along with the teachings very well, and this enticed the curiosity of Satyananda. And he thought, well, maybe there's a part of us that is not specifically awake, but is aware during the state of sleep. And he started pulling from that thread and started making lots of interesting discoveries. One of the things that I have realized, and I respect plenty about yogis, is that they are very pragmatic characters. If something doesn't work, they just reject it. They come up with a theory of a new practice, a new asana, a new meditation technique, or whatever, and they just put it to test. They just go about it. They take all the knowledge they have, they tweak. It's very scientific in that way. So he started experimenting with this and putting things to the test, and he also drew from other meditation techniques. The oldest one is called Nyasa. It's a tantric technique that is more than 3,000 years old. So he started developing a way of meditation that he ended up calling Yoga Nidra, which technically means yogic sleep or the yoga of dreaming. Nidra can mean either sleeping or it can mean dreaming. So I kind of loved that because as a Spaniard, I love my siestas and my naps, and I was very, very tense. So I thought, like, you're telling me that I can go for a nap and progress on my spiritual development. Where do I sign? And so I started there, as the proper lazy man that I am. So I realized that there was a lot of wisdom in that approach, because for most of us, at least in the Western world, we don't need more activity. We don't need more being on and switched on and being tense and concentrated and focused. We kind of need the opposite. We need to find ways to unwind. We need to find ways to relax. We need to find ways to release all of the tension that we accumulate. And unfortunately, for many of us, we haven't learned to consciously relax. At least I don't know about the people in this room, but at least I think I've started to learn how to properly relax age 40 this year. So, I mean, most of us just switch on Netflix or, get ourselves a little glass of wine, call a friend, put on a movie, whatever it is, just to disconnect. But disconnection is not proper relaxation. So Swami Satyananda saw a need and kind of drew from all of the yogic corpus of knowledge and his own discoveries about how could we influence consciousness during the sleeping states and create the Yoga Nidra. And then he started experimenting with this in places like prisons and the Western world. He went to the United States and he started working with people that just didn't have the energy to meditate. They had gone through a traumatic experience, or they had had a car accident, or they were bedridden in hospital. And he went like, no problem, you can still do yoga. Just lay down on your bed or on the floor or wherever you happen to be, and do this thing with your body and do this thing with your breathing and do this thing with your mind, and you'll find that there's a way for your system to replenish, to release whatever tensions you have, and put yourself back in track towards health, but not only physical health, but psychic health, emotional health, spiritual health. And of course, the therapeutic world has taken on with this like a house on fire. Like every brain scan available to man is being done to Nidra meditators, and a lot of what the Western therapeutic disciplines have proposed and have experimented with have come with very, very solid axioms, mirror perfectly the techniques that Yoga Nidra has been working on. So that kind of made my brain explode and really showed me the way towards the path. There's something solid here. We're just not talking about mambo jumbo from some yogis with yoga pants talking about chakras. There's something true and honest about this. And also I was experiencing the benefits in my own life. So for those reasons, I think that anybody who desires to either sleep better or find relief from tension, be it physical tension, emotional tension, mental or psychological. Anybody who wishes to have a super tool for their personal development or for their spiritual development can really benefit from this meditation. And it's also very elegant. So there's no complicated well, the technique is sophisticated, but it's elegant and doesn't require you to go to a yoga studio or to join a retreat. You just need a guided meditation, a good silent place where you can practice, and you're good to go. So all of these, at least to me, there are very good reasons for us to be having these conversations. If you are not interested, please leave now. I do not want to waste your time, but I hope you'll stay and learn a few things. That's my hope. All right. So I thought it useful to present you with several models, operating models of how are we made as a being, not only as a body, but as a body, mind, spirit complex. There's many different models of being, depending if you know take a biological standpoint, philosophical standpoint, or different. But I present you with two or three that I think they're very solid and long-standing, and I hope that can give us a map for the territory that we're going to explore. By the way, I don't know how Luke would feel about it, but if something gets too entangled to the point that you feel that you cannot follow this presentation, please stop me and force me to explain myself better, and I'll do my best. So
Luke feels fine about it, and
brilliant.
This is about the interaction, and it's going to be a lot more meaningful if people stop in the moment to ask the questions. So absolutely.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and our preference is that you ask the question as opposed to write in the chat. So yeah,
I am not checking the chat, just so you know. I
am.
can see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I thought it was useful, because I have found that when we are presented with techniques, spiritual techniques or practices or coaching tools, I don't know what your perception is about it, but my perception is that sometimes we get the technique and we don't get the context or the foundational knowledge or the narratives or where it comes from. And that may be very pragmatic, but maybe it takes away from the beauty and from the depth of whatever technique can offer. So I thought it useful to present you with a few things. So, for example, I think we're more or less all familiar with the psychoanalytic model of Freud and Adler and Jung, that we have a conscious mind. We live in consciousness where we're awake. We're conscious of each other right now, and time and the temperature and ourselves. But there's this other thing called the subconscious that to us is kind of obvious at this point in 2020, but it wasn't so obvious 150 years ago. Nobody had really kind of defined what the subconscious was before Freud and Jung kind of painted an accurate picture of what that was. We kind of thought that we were in control of our own lives, that the waking world was all there was. And those who couldn't control their lives were either possessed by spirits, or they were sick, or they were just lazy, or they just didn't have their ducks in a row. There was not this now popular culture that there are things running in the background that we are not aware about, and we're not aware of, and they kind of run our lives to a point that is alarming. Even 90% of our mental activity is just automatic pilot, subconscious. We repeat the same things day to day to day to day to day, and in a certain way, those things make us instead of us making them. So, also, I found it very interesting that the psychoanalytic school places.
Chris has a question. So after you finish your thought there, John.
I was just going to say that I found it very, very telling that the whole psychoanalytic school places a lot of importance on the world of dreams, and dreams are also used as a therapeutic tool. So I found a parallel there that to me was very, very revealing and worth worth exploring. Chris, please.
Scratch your question. I don't know if it should go to John, Luke, or both. So I think I think it's the elevator pitch webinar that also had an iceberg in it.
Yes, that's right.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I think
Super.
I think it's just how to connect with buyers based and building trust. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and it was a very different model onto the subconscious on that. It was just another, yeah. But you're right. It was both. It was used for sure. Yeah.
So just to make a very brief description, the conscious mind is the one that lives kind of right here, right now, is having this experience, analyzes things, plans, and it's kind of all about the short term. We can think long term, but kind of lives here. It's about the now. We switch off and go to sleep, bam, it's gone. It's like the short-term memory in a computer. When you switch it off, the screen goes blank. While the subconscious is kind of that big repository of our habits, our belief systems, the ones that we're aware of and the ones that we are not aware of. The long-term memory is the place where dreams are created and manifested. Brief mention to the law of attraction. We attract based on our predominant states, and our states are very much dictated by our subconscious unless we take conscious control of them. It's also the seat of psychic abilities such as intuition, creativity, and in a way, we need to understand a bit the word of Carl Gustav Jung, but it taps into the collective. There's a part of that layer of our being that is shared by all of us. If I talk about my own experience, you can relate to it because there's something common to you and I. There's a common operating system that allows us to connect, and that's kind of the collective unconscious. We all understand the archetype of father, mother, life, death, all of these basic foundational blocks of experience that deep down there, they kind of come back to the origins of our species, and they have been evolving for millennia and even millions of years. So
John,
yeah.
that was Carl Jung you're referring to, right?
Yeah, basically, Carl Jung was the guy that kind of switched on the torch on that concept of the collective unconscious, which was very revolutionary at the time because we were thinking of ourselves as complete individuals. And it was Carl Gustav Jung who said, like, no, there has to be a common operating system, something that allows us to understand and connect, not only at an intellectual kind of linguistic level, but, at an emotional, psychic level. And that was one of the reasons why Freud and Jung kind of parted ways, because obviously once we go into that territory, we go into the religious, we go into revelation, we go into things like angels and things like that. And Freud was very kind of, I don't want to go there, dude. So it was very, very interesting discussion. But if we even go even more back in time, we have our good man Plato. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the famous Plato's cave. But in case, I'm just going to try my best attempt at a description. Plato was describing reality as the reflection of something that was kind of hidden to us, very much like we would do now as we project a movie. We will see something on a screen, we see this world appear before us, we call it real. And for most of us, as we can see on the left side of the wall in the painting, in the drawing, we live prisoners of that perception. We just point out, look, there's a horse. Look, there's a dog over there, and we are prisoners if we believe that that's reality. That's all there is. But what Plato proposed and had an intuition of is that what we were seeing was just kind of a mere reflection of the world of the gods, of the world of pure form. There was kind of a light that was projecting that experience in front of our eyes, but this was just merely a reflection. There was another hidden world that was complete and full and had the potential of everything, so to speak. And that when we became aware of that world, we would in effect achieve enlightenment, or at least get the complete picture. That's what you see on the other side of the wall, on the other side of the light. Two men that are not in chains anymore, looking at the sun, which is traditionally a symbol of enlightenment and consciousness. So Plato also intuited something like this. And now when we go into yoga, the yogis have this beautiful model called the 5 layers or 5 koshas. And it basically says that you or me or Luke or any of us can be divided into these 5 koshas. And this is kind of important for the rest of the presentation, because Yoga Nidra follows these steps or these layers. Yoga Nidra is in effect a journey through layers from the most physical and gross, which is the physical body. We start working with the physical body, towards the more subtle and ethereal and mystical layers of our being. So we go from the physical body, which is animated by the vital body, which is the breath, the life energy, which is in turn informed by the mind. We breathe and have emotions depending on what's going on in our minds. If we have peaceful thoughts, we have peaceful breathing, we have a peaceful body. If we have anxious thoughts, our vital energy gets contracted and tense, our breathing changes, and our body also kind of contracts. One layer deeper, we have the personality. That's the layer of the psyche. That's our temperament. That's our common history. That's our symbology. That's the most deeply rooted religious, national, and narrative symbols of our culture and our species. And finally, there's God. Finally, is underpinning all of that, there's an essence that is unmovable, and it lives out of time and space. And that's I don't need for anybody to believe in this. It's just a working model of how we are constructed, and we can take it as a working model. We don't need to believe in it, but it works for the purposes of this presentation and for explaining how this meditation works. For me, this model has become experiential. Through this type of meditation, I have been able to move through these layers and get to know them. So I hope to take you from the theoretical and conceptual to hopefully something a bit more practical. Everybody good so far?
Yes, it looks like everything's good. Yep, no questions that I've noticed.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I'm almost going to start with Yoga Nidra, but I'm going to first tell you the story of this painting. I found this painting through a YouTube video, and I'm not going to bore you with the story of the video or how I found it, but I was presented with this painting on that video, and it shook me to the core. It kind of went like, everything is there, like all of the models, all of the description. This is what Yoga Nidra is about. This is a German guy called Malte Lenz, and he doesn't plan his paintings. He paints guided by inspiration, and he's very much into Carl Gustav Jung and the development of the individual, and he has been following that inner motivation, so to speak, and that motivation informs his paintings. And it's only when he looks at them afterwards that he goes like, oh, look, this has something to do with that. And I saw this painting and I went like, well, this puts it all together. This is how the spiritual traditions and the mystic traditions and even to a certain extent philosophical and therapeutic traditions think about being. There's a world that we know, is the manifest, tangible world, is the things that are known to us, and there's an unknown and unmanifest world. That's the subconscious, is the things that we don't know about, is the things that we ignore. Those are the things that kind of lurk underneath the surface that can surprise us any minute. It's the elephant in the room that we don't want to look at, and it is the elephant in the room that we don't know it even exists, but it's still there. And so this painting also has the staircase, which is a universal symbol of the spiritual journey from heaven to earth and to hell and back. And it also has, the heavenly castle, the heavenly city, the heaven that we should aspire to build while we are in this life, or at least that's the mission many of the religious traditions, try to create a world that reflects a heavenly order, a heavenly love and goodness. And in the midst of it all, you have the main character, going down the staircase with the light on and about to embark into the underworld. And to me, I'm going to use this painting as the script, so to speak, as the descriptive tool for how Yoga Nidra is structured and what it is supposed to accomplish in any of the stages of a Yoga Nidra meditation. And just because I can use it for yoga and I can use it for the psychoanalytic model and I can use it for the 5 layers and the 3 worlds, I'm gonna use this art by Malte Lenz. I do recommend you check this guy out. He's brilliant, very young, super talented, and I had the good fortune to speak with him on Zoom. He's like, I need to use your painting for a presentation, man. Please, can I use it? Okay, go ahead. And I think it is time that I introduce the concept of the 3 worlds or states. The yogic and Vedic tradition declares that we live actually not in one world, the one that we live now, but we actually live in 3 worlds. And those 3 worlds are the waking state. This will be world 1. The second world is the world of dreams. We fly over cities and live adventures and do things we shouldn't do maybe on the physical world, but we still have that experience. It's a world in itself, and there's a part of us that lives and operates there. That's the dreaming world. And the third world is the deep sleep without dreams. We do not know that we are there, but we do, because the following day when we wake up, we are able to declare I had a good deep sleep. So there's a part of us that knows, even though our conscious mind, our awareness we are not aware that we are there because we switch off, the mind switches off. But there's a part of us that lives in that deep sleep. And this is not trivial, just because I assume that all of us in this room love a good deep sleep. That we feel that something within us clicks into place when we have a deep restorative sleep. We seek it. We have a tough day, can't wait to go to sleep. And it's not merely so the body gets a bit of a replenishing. It's our minds, our emotions. We go to bed a bit pissed off, we wake up in the morning and we're fine. There's something that happens during the dreaming and deep sleep states that is deeply nourishing, it's deeply needed, especially in this rushed world of sensations, advertisement, notifications. We're kind of on steroids. It's not like 700 years ago you wake up in the morning with the sun, you do your farming, come back, lit your fire, talk to the family, go to bed, repeat this. We are overstimulated. We need sleep way more than ever, and it's no surprise that we are suffering of stress and sleep disorders and people have insomnia and constant states of anxiety. So I hope to provide some tools and knowledge around this topic as well. And this is us. We're going to go down the staircase. This is what in yoga is called the jiva, or the person is the entity with a social security number and names and surnames, and is the thing that acts. But yoga considers us to be way more than that. Yoga considers us to be the physical body and also all of the things that we cannot see and everything that experience contains. But this is what we're going to use to meditate, the jiva or the person. And what we're going to try and cultivate is self-awareness. And this is possibly the most important piece of information about the whole presentation. Self-awareness is the key to any therapeutic process, is the key to any progress that we make spiritually or personally or in any job. Only when we see something clearly, or only when we are aware of what's going on, we get to progress. We get to put things together, see something anew, get a new idea. We cannot just slip through life. Only when we see is when we have the aha moments. And This is going to be super important because Yoga Nidra is working with sleep. But in order for us to not fall asleep when we go to sleep, we need to learn how to be aware while the rest of our system, our body, our mind, our emotions go to sleep, but we remain aware. And one of the interesting things for me is that scientists have been studying this concept of self-awareness, and they have realized that is the key to any therapeutic healing, especially with people with PTSD, people with trauma, people with deep wounding, be it emotional or psychospiritual. The way our system and our brain specifically processes experience is a number of different systems in the brain. You know, the part of us that processes the sensory information, the part of us that regulates our heart rate and how we're going to move, the part of us that tells the story of what's going on, the part of us that actually feels the emotions. When everything is working perfectly well, all of those systems have the ability to kind of talk to each other because we are self-aware, we are relaxed, we're having this conversation here on Zoom, nothing crazy is happening, so all of our systems are working together, and this experience is not being traumatic or stressful to us. I hope I'm not creating you any sort of trauma by speaking, but that would be the theory. But when the sensory input is too much, when we go through trauma, when we go through sustained situations of stress, which is the case for many of us with the uncertainties of the world, you know, COVID and everything, the brain, the mind reaches a point in which it's just too much. It's just too much. I just can't. I need to go to sleep. I can't deal with this. We have that feeling. It's like, dude, I'm overwhelmed. I can't deal with this. And the way that the brain deals with that is like, okay, no problem. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep the emotional information here. I'm gonna keep the narrative there. I'm gonna keep your heart rate palpitating for a month and you're not gonna know why, because everything is disconnected. And I'm gonna make you drowsy, and then we're sick, or we're stressed, or we have anxiety, or we have insomnia. What scientists have discovered is that for the brain to actually finish the job of putting all things together, we need self-awareness. They call it interoception. And the problem is that these parts of the brain, they do not have the ability to talk to each other directly. They need a part of the brain that sits in the prefrontal cortex. My God, my English today. And that acts as a regulator, as an intermediary for all of that information. So when we consciously learn self-awareness, we are in effect allowing our brain and allowing our mind to process all of the psychic, emotional, and psychological experiences that it never had a chance to process, and hence release tension and find relief, find healing, find calmness, and we start feeling lighter and lighter and lighter and more serene, and we create a certain buffer between us and whatever it was before that was stressing us. So I found it important to just make this note because I will be mentioning self-awareness a lot of times during this presentation. So we start the only place we can, in the real world, the tangible world, the manifest world. We start awake. This is where we're going to start. So when we're awake, we have a body, and we're going to use the awakened state and the body state. And I've also included some graphics of how the brain operates at these states, either in gamma waves or beta waves. And these are the ones that when we are working in the office, when we are negotiating traffic, when we are talking on the phone, doing things, our brain is in either of these two states. Gamma is more excited and more anxious. Beta is alert consciousness. It's an excitement. It's the type of alertness that you feel if you're a musician, you're playing and you're just doing your thing. You're on, but you are not anxious. And this is what we start. This is our starting point. And so what we're going to do is to take what we have, which is our body, and we're going to try and relax so deeply that we're in effect trying to simulate the way the body operates when it is sleeping, but we're going to try our best to keep ourselves aware of that. We're just going to go very deep into relaxation. We're going to take the staircase down into the sleeping state through conscious relaxation.
Beth has the question.
Yep.
Hi, thanks for letting me ask my question.
Of course.
What is there a differentiation between the state you're in very, very deep meditation, your state you're in versus when you're in under hypnosis, and the state you're talking about right now?
Yes. When you are very, very deep in meditation, you are not necessarily, for example, having your body relax. You can be very deep in meditation while you are kind of, in a way, your back is upright. You're very conscious and very intentional about the position of your head. You may be physically hurting. You may have pain in your back. You may have, numbness on your legs. I don't know if you have that experience if you meditate in lotus pose or something like that, but you are very aware of your body. You're still very much in your body. You may reach the same places, spiritually speaking, or consciousness speaking, that you reach with Yoga Nidra, but you're not going to go the same way. There's many ways to skin the cat. I want to say that I'm not going to claim that this is the best and only meditation technique you ever need, and please just throw away everything else. But you're going to go to the same place, but you're not going to, with Nidra, you're going to go through relaxation, deep relaxation, while many other techniques are not about relaxation, but about focusing, and intentional focusing on one point. I will elaborate on that in a couple of slides, but thank you for the question. And finally, hypnosis is about you not being aware that you're being hypnotized. You do not have self-awareness when you're being hypnotized. You may know that you're going to go to be hypnotized, and the hypnotherapist will take you to a point in which you are unconscious, so they can plant some new ideas in your subconscious mind. So they can tell you you're free from this, or you are a millionaire, whatever. Like they can, you're gonna dance polka when I click my fingers, or whatever it is. But you don't have the element of self-awareness. You're still in a hypnotic state. So that's common with Nidra and hypnosis, because you're gonna go to a hypnotic state with Nidra, but you're going to retain self-awareness. You're going to be consciously hypnotized by yourself. You're never going to lose it unless you fall asleep, in which case that, we start again the next day and we enjoy the nap. There's no problem. So, but thank you for the question. Super interesting. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and Chris seems to have a question also. So,
Chris.
Or just a comment. Know, they have, I forget what it's called, like above the crib, you can put like a thing. It spins and makes and plays a little bit of a tune. I forget what you call it.
That's a mobile.
Sorry?
Mobile.
And it's I think it's supposed to put the baby to sleep.
It would put me to
mobile.
Sleep if I had one. Yeah. But it's super. I may touch upon that, Chris, when I get to some of the how the mind works, because one of the ways that we have to relax the mind is to give it an object of attention. And the thing with the mobile is that it provides enough variability that the mind is kind of always going like, oh, I can see that, I can see this, I can see that, it's moving.
So it's a distraction. It's a distraction.
It's a design. It's a distraction, but it's a very elegant one, because it's not, oh, look at this toy, look at that other toy, oh, look at this, now it's time to eat, or no, it's time to watch. It's a distraction that is contained in a way, it has enough variability that keeps your mind busy with something, but also entertained, and at some point it kind of gives up, that dies itself. That's kind of what I don't know if you have this in Canada, but they told us to count sheep when we wanted to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like it's not stare at the sheep, concentrate on the sheep. There's only one sheep. It's like there's one, and there's two, and there's three, and there's four. Boom. At one point, just go.
So John, I also want to mention we're at about halfway through, so you have another 35 minutes.
Oh God Almighty! I need to rush. Okay. So I think I have touched on this in different ways at the moment. What we're trying to do is to lower our vibration to the sleeping states, but remain awake. I'm also going to include, as you can see on the top right, some brain scans of people as they go through the different stages of the meditation. So this is kind of the awakened state. You can see there's very different types of activity in the brain at different frequencies and different blood flows. I'm not going to get technical because I would possibly also not be accurate, but just to give us an idea of the type of activity that the brain has in comparison to what I will show you later. So we begin by getting as comfy as possible. I'm going to try and speed up a bit because I'm concerned about timing and I want to give you the chance to ask questions. So again, the more comfy you can get, the better. Silent room, dark, put something on your eyes, anything you can do. So your body doesn't give you any signal of, oh, I need to move, oh, I'm not comfortable, oh, this is not cool. Just, it's a treat. You can think about it as a treat to yourself and to your mind so it can relax. So that's something I like. I can give myself a treat. We're not used to that. I'm not used to that. And another element of the meditation is that even though we're going to relax and surrender fully, we're still going to give ourselves an intention or a resolve, which is called in the practice asankalpa, which is like, it can be something as simple as I relax fully, or it can be your next life goal, as long as it depends on you and depends only on you. It's not, I earn $1 million in the lotto, or the woman of my life appears tomorrow Tuesday as I go and buy bread. And it's not that type of magical thinking. It's I am a constant person, or I practice my yoga every day. Something that then you will have to plant this seed in your mind at the beginning and at the end of the practice. So stage one, once we are in it, once we have prepared ourselves and we're comfy and we're silent, we'll relax ourselves and we start with what is called the body scan. And the body scan is a way to give your brain a massage by directing your attention to different parts of the brain in sequence through the guided recording. So that's kind of the mobile thing. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, mind, think of the thumb, think of the second finger, think of the third finger, go to the fourth finger, go to the fifth finger. You give it like, if it was a pet, you would be giving it like bones to chew in a way. So you're tiring your pet, you're getting your pet to play. Or if it was your 3-year-old, you would give it the mobile and it's like, oh, look at that, it's fantastic, isn't it? And at the same time, every time that we put our attention to a specific body part, that corresponding brain part gets a stimulus. And we normally don't get to operate all of the parts of the brain simultaneously. So what we're doing with this, we're just going through the entire combo of body parts. So the motor and the sensory parts of the brain responsible for those parts get a full reset, get a full refresh. By the end of this, if done properly, and depending on how long it is, you may have your body the most relaxed you have ever experienced it consciously. At least that's my experience. You're completely soothed. It's like your body's actually sleeping. You put it in a sleeping state. I could speak more, but I think I'm gonna move on.
And that's been my experience, John, with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
we,
right, yeah.
we talked about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked about it,
yeah.
and when I finish, maybe you can share a bit more. And so again, very quickly, I would have loved to maybe go deeper, but I can share the presentation with you if that's useful. But I made a comparison here with the traditional meditator on the right. It's like, focus on the bloody candle, mate. The candle, it's just a candle. I need to pay my bills. Suck at meditating, just a candle. Breathe, I'm late for the next meeting. Well, that's my experience with meditation. Like my back hurts, I can't keep still, this is torture. And the candle is winning. But the Nidra meditator was like, okay, mind, let's play this game. Go fetch my leg, go fetch my arm, go fetch my toes, chew at that bone. It's like, oh, this is comfy, isn't it? It's fun. It gives you something to do, and that's super relaxing. You have something to play with, and then the mind eventually gets tired and surrenders. So you can see how the brain starts getting that soothing massage on the back part of the brain, has kind of balanced on the same with the same blood flow, and at the same time the prefrontal cortex starts getting a lot of blood. It's like, okay, now we are exercising the most developed part of ourselves. We move from alpha waves to theta waves. This is deep meditation, creativity, insight. We're starting to go down into the world of dreams. Still in the physical realm, we have the second tool, which is breath awareness. And once we have fully relaxed our body, we need to relax our second layer, pranamaya kosha, the layer of the vital force, the layer of the breath. If we go to mythology and to religion, it's very symbolic. Like even God had to breathe his spirit into Adam to animate it. Otherwise, it's a corpse. I right here, breath is life energy. A body without breath is technically known as a glorious disaster or corpse. So it's very interesting to observe that each of our emotions has its own corresponding breathing pattern. If you breathe deeply for a minute and slowly, I guarantee you'll be more calm at the end of that minute. And if you breathe quick and shallow for a minute, I guarantee you'll be more anxious at the end of the minute. It's just mathematics of how we are built. So what we do, the same way that we did working with the body and going through all the different parts, we give the mind some work to do. Is okay, focus on how the breath is coming through your nostrils. Now focus on how the breath is coming through your throat. Notice how the air is coming into your lungs. Now look at and what it does, it makes you aware that the breath is doing its own thing. It doesn't need you. And then you release it. And when you release the breath, you start breathing like people that are sleeping breathe. You see a person is sleeping and they're not controlling their breathing, just going. And you think, I would like to be like that. I would like to be that peaceful. So this is one technique that we can use to release our grip on the breath so it can find its own mojo, so to speak. I'm going to move fast. I want to give you time to do questions. So, summary, we have relaxed very deeply, or we have fallen asleep. We have given ourselves a break from waking reality. We have given our brain a massage. We have provided blood flow to all the areas responsible for regulating our bodily functions. We have balanced and relaxed our breathing patterns. And at this point, we have activated our parasympathetic nervous response, which is the part of our nervous system responsible for replenishing, for relaxation, for digestion, for slowing down the heart, and for immune system activation. As you can see on the bottom right part of the screen, this is where we have taken our brain to. These are actual brain scans of Yoga Nidra meditators. So we go from hyperactivity and hyperstimulus to a super chilled temple of a brain. And at this point, we have reached that subtle place in between worlds. And this has a correlation to what Beth was asking before. This is what technically is called the hypnagogic state. It's that place in between dreams and reality when you don't know if you're dreaming or awake. And you can even see images of dreams, but you don't know what's going on. And this is a state that is very much used in therapy and also in creative workshops and shamanic rituals. Is that place in which we're still connected to the tangible space, but a part of us is kind of somewhere else talking to the gods or to the fairies, and the unicorns. It's very interesting to study and to develop this state because it allows us to talk to parts of our minds that we normally don't have access to, and gives us plenty of insights because they are not conditioned by our day-to-day thought patterns. They give you a fresh, new, raw perspective on things that sometimes is more true than our construction of reality. So once we cross that threshold, the fun starts and we go into the subconscious and unconscious world. This is the layer of the mind, which is represented by the top left part of the picture. This is where our ideas, our memories, our dreams, our associations, our beliefs, our political affiliations, our likes and dislikes for a certain religious idea or all of that lies there. It's personal, it's individual, it's us, it's our lives, and it rules our life. And we actually call it us. All of this is ours. If somebody threatens your belief system, you get really, really unconsciously defensive, and you maybe not know why, but it's because this is underpinning your conscious reality and your conscious life. And we're going to go there. And one layer deeper than that, you have the layer that makes this layer possible. And that's what we talked about before. It's the layer of archetypes. It's what we share as a species and also as a culture. It's all of this deep embedded symbolism: the sun, the moon, the mountain, Christ, the Buddha, the flag of your country. All of those things are deeply rooted in our identity. It would be very difficult for me to, let's say, go move and live in Canada and get to feel about the Canadian flag the same way as deep as I feel about the Spanish flag. And I kind of don't have a choice. It's not like I have worked on developing a love for my country. It's just that, it's 40 years of my life. It's my parents, my grandparents. It just goes back for centuries. So there's a part of my psyche that is going to have a lot of attachments to that symbol in ways that for Luke would be the Canadian flag, for example. So this is where we're going to go now. And I'm sorry I'm not reading what I took the entire week to write, but maybe it's better if I just rant, and I can share the PDF of this later. It's all good. Okay, fine.
It's all good. Yeah, right where you need to be.
Fantastic. So let's talk a bit about the stuff that we keep in the basement of our minds. The mind is designed, when it's working properly, and you can see this with our brothers and sisters, the mammals. We go through an experience, we process it, we shake it out, we move on. If it doesn't make an impact, we just live through it. We may remember it, we may not, but it doesn't leave a trace. If the experience is properly lived through, it doesn't leave a trace. It can leave a memory, but it doesn't need to leave an emotional wake. It doesn't need to leave a scar. It doesn't need to leave a mark. Problem is, most of us don't have that experience. We live in such a rushed pace that you have a difficult conversation with your boss or with your partner, and you take it to your commuting, you take it to your conversation next with your partner or whoever it is, and it stays there unresolved, even though it happened like 2 hours ago, 2 weeks ago, or 20 years ago. Still there. You still remember and you keep chewing on it. And maybe at some point you park it, but if you don't resolve it, it stays there. It keeps informing the next conversation you have with that person. There's something in there that was like, wait a second, you and I have unfinished business. Even if you're not aware of it, it will inform every interaction. Unless the experience is fully assimilated, we need life energy. We need a part of our system needs to assign resources to keep that thing in place. And then we keep that conversation in place, and what our mother did to us when we were 2, and what our boss told us 2 weeks ago when he didn't give us the promotion and give it to the sucker over there who is just a whatever, and then the traffic jam and all of that. Unless we can release it, we're spending life energy, prana, psychic energy to keep it suppressed. Result: stress, tension, drama. If this doesn't get resolved, even illnesses, psychosomatic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue. Some people will develop ulcers, others will develop cardiovascular problems. It all starts in the psyche. I'm not saying that there are no sicknesses that are purely biological at the physical level, but it's fairly common knowledge now that most diseases are exactly that. We stop being at ease and we start a certain tension that becomes untangled, and that stuff we keep in the basements of our minds. But if we have been doing our job well with Yoga Nidra, now we have provided our mind with such a relaxing and cozy environment, something similar to an inner temple, that we can safely let the brain, let the mind finish the job. And this is what we talked about before, interoception. And interoception actually happens in that little yellow spot in the brain at this point of Yoga Nidra. Is that regulating element in the brain that can make every other part communicate and process whatever hasn't been processed. So I have our meditator here saying something like, go on, subconscious body. The gates are open. It's okay, mate. Look how cozy it is here. No need to hold on anymore. It's safe to let it go. I'm okay. Can't you see? I'm so chilled that I can take it. And then the mind goes like, yeah, party time. And it starts releasing and releasing and releasing and releasing. I know that Luke had, when he started, a few experiences that he was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. You know?
Man,
But-
it was like I got to such a deep, relaxing place. It actually, I did it in the morning, and I literally felt I was like my body and like they were kind of, I felt out of joint. I felt like I hadn't been come right back into the body, and I was spacey for a couple hours, and I'm thinking, I can't do this in the morning if it's going to throw me off for the rest of the day. And John assured me going, no, that's part of the process, but also on that. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience, to
Very
say the
interesting
least.
experience. Yeah. So this is again what we need: self-awareness. When we become aware, we kind of give him. It's like when you talk to a friend and they are kind of tense and they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, and just kind of, dude, I love you. Relax. Come on, tell me about it. It's fine. It's just you and me. You know, it's gonna be fine. Just let it out. With establishing that relationship with the contents of our minds, we are here witnessing, self-aware, and we're giving permission to the rest of the system to lighten up. It may not happen automatically because you may have been we have things that have been there like for years, you know, some of them for hours, some of them for generations. And it's maybe our great grandfather started something that we have inherited and we're still tense about the war that he fought, you know, maybe 100 years ago. That can also happen. All of these energies can be passed on, but this is one of the many yogic tools that we have to open up the floodgates. And if you think about it, it makes sense therapeutically. You know, when you go to the therapy room, you do the same. You lay down or you talk, and your point is to relax and release and talk and let it run its course. Let it just be seen and be peacefully resolved. Super tool for PTSD. You know, I can't wait to do a bit of therapy with people that are going through stuff. And by the way, if any of you at some point want to work one-on-one with me, feel free to send me an email and we'll do. These pent-up energies that I described before are called samskaras. I'm going to go through this. We can go about it later. And I'm going to, again, very rapidly go through the different techniques that we can use at this level of the psyche, which is basically forcing the mind to contemplate the two opposite poles of a certain range of experience. Let's say, for example, I can make you feel completely poor and absolutely wealthy, or completely in love or absolutely alone and rejected, or very, very hot or very, very cold. And what we do with that is several things. First of all, we teach ourselves that we are not the experience. We are the ones witnessing the experience. That gives us resilience, because you can go like, no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I can cope with this. I've worked on this axis of experience. I know that I am not the lack of money or the wealth. I know that I'm not the rejection or the partnership. I know I am this thing that can navigate all of these experiences, and that provides the brain new neural pathways to reevaluate everything and achieve that middle path, that balance, you know, when you are not attached to any of the two. We can also do guided visualizations, which are kind of the traditional way of doing guided meditations. But when you download a guided meditation of YouTube, it normally doesn't prepare to go this deep into your mind. It's just kind of visualizing and it's all well and good. It doesn't activate interoception. It doesn't put you in a dreaming state. So with a visualization at this level, you can revisit traumatic scenes of your life to liberate pent-up tension or to reevaluate them or to reenact them. Like if you wanted to rehearse what you have done in a certain situation in the past, were you able to do it again? You can actually do it and create those patterns and rehearse that skill that you didn't have at the time. It's super. I mean, I don't want to get too excited because then I'm gonna just stay here until New Year. So I'll just leave it at that. But it's super, super interesting visualizations. We are not narrative creatures. We understand narrative. We organize our lives through stories. It's like, look, tell me how last week went. Luke is not gonna go, well, the alarm went on at 7:44, and then I just went and peed, and then I just made a coffee. That's not the story of Luke's week. It's like, well, dude, I met this guy and he told me this. That was a bugger, but then I saw.
No, the
We
government
need-
cut off Luke from the subsidy checks, and then Luke is scrambling to figure out how to make ends meet. That's the
Yeah.
story of Luke's
And
week.
then my phone broke down, and I had this meeting. I had to go to the shop. It's like, that's Luke's week. It's not I put my hands on the steering wheel and it turned it left. No, we need narrative. And finally, and super interesting, working with symbols, the archetypes. And this is another difference between, let's say, regular guided meditations and these ones, because one of the things that fascinated me with Nidra is that when you're doing a normal guided meditation, you normally want unicorns, deserted beaches, soothing warm winds of summer, and beautiful visualizing your goals. That's all well and good, and it's great. Nothing against it. But what we can do with Nidra, since we're in such a deep state of sleepless sleep in the world of dreams, we can also entice disagreeable thoughts, uncomfortable thoughts, because we're so relaxed that we give the mind the opportunity to release negative associations as well. And that's super important in spiritual development. We have this idea of just going up. This is kind of one of the new age delusions, we just need to go up and reach God up here. But if you study any mystic, they actually go down into the depth and they face their demons. You need to go to Mordor in a way. So Nidra allows us to, when the mind is relaxed and comfortable, tap it and go like, what do you have there about death, for example, or other things that may be a bit like provocative, but provide so much relief because maybe you are holding on to something or attached to something, it just releases. So it works for both ends of the spectrum. It's very integrative in that regard, and I respect that. So I'm just gonna not do this. I went a bit deep in the opposites, homeostasis, visualizations, and narrative, and the different types of symbols, from the Death Star to Jesus on the cross to the flag or mountains. But if you think about it, when you walk on the beach and you look at the horizons, a part of you relaxes. It's like a part of you comes back home. If you look at these scissors, they may do nothing to you, but you look at the swastika and it does something to you. Or you look at the rising sun and it just profoundly affects you. And you go like, wow, there's something very, very primal about these quasi-eternal units of information. So we can give the mind a massage by enticing scenes that are almost this eternal. And our minds will just kind of rebalance itself and release anything that needs to be released if need be, or otherwise it will just so peacefully calm down that it's like being on holiday. And I'm gonna move from this. I describe a bit, the nature of the screen of the mind. We can do away. And the final stop, after we have been working all of those layers, body, breath, subconscious, unconscious, thoughts, mind, and beliefs, and symbols, and visuals. Final stop is, for lack of a better word, God. Is the final silence, when you are in that deep sleep bliss, when you're not aware of your body because you've disconnected from it. You are not concerned with breathing because it's doing its own thing. Your mind is flat and empty and silent. You've transcended time. You don't perceive time. You're in pure bliss. You're fully sleeping, but you're aware. And this took me a bit of training, and I do not always achieve it. It's not like, oh, I've been doing Yoga Nidra for 3 days and here I am talking to Jesus, and it's not that sort of thing, But you get glimpses, or at least that's what I do. Sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of transcending the mind, like there's just nothing there. It's silent. I get holidays from myself, and that's true relief. It's true relief, and I find it kind of cool that many of the creation stories start right there, outside of time, outside of space, in a sort of void, in stillness. And from there, there's chaos, and from there, it organizes itself in things that are very basic, like the archetypes, and that creates more complexity, and that, boom, the world appears. So we're kind of doing the way backward. We're going back to that originating point, and that's where we rest. And the reason that we rest in this, because that's what we are. We're back home. The world is a cool place. It's a phenomenal experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything. But there's a part of us that knows that peace, kind of recognizes it as almost like, oh, this is how it felt to be in the womb of my mother. That's sort of pure, cozy.
Yeah, it's kind of
peace.
like your home. Like your home, you're like really. There's nothing to worry about. Like it's just
Yeah,
drop your
yeah,
guard. Yeah.
yeah, totally. It's a deep, 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 deep surrender. It's a surrender, and I understand spirituality as ultimately surrendering to that force, and recognizing our place in the cosmos, which is like, okay, I need to surrender to that creator, that force that is out of time, out of space, and kind of made this experience. So it's a super cool encounter, and I believe it's the goal of any serious spiritual endeavor, and just to reach that to reach that originating point, that ananda, that chit, that that Christ consciousness. So I mean, you don't need to have any beliefs to practice the technique. But if you do have a spiritual background or a religious background, it's useful to have the narrative and the language, because it gives you a structure to many of the experiences and many of the concepts that are embedded in the practice. So it's cool. Just as a disclaimer, as Luke just said, super relaxing experience, super replenishing. But it is also true that if the subconscious or the system goes like, yay, time to release stuff, you also may have a jolt, or you also may have at some point a kind of a very strong vision. The idea is to let it run its course, and if it's overwhelming, stop the meditation, go simpler, and build it up. Yoga Nidra is not provoking this, it's just opening the door for something that was there, and so it's chance to be expressed. And that's what it has been looking for all along. It's like something that needed to be expressed. So as we build our ego, as we build our muscle and our self-awareness, these things become easier, and we are able to sustain more and more release, and we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And also there's different types of meditations. There are nidras that are designed to just give you the relaxing practice, and there are other scripts that I write that are more designed for therapeutic purposes and release, and there are other scripts that I write more designed to establish a communication and find guidance. It's like, what should I do next? And then ding, 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 ideas. So, and also, as Luke pointed out, like, if you go very, very deep, it's worth it to take your time to kind of come back, because your awareness has gone far away from the body. Sometimes we are in a rush. It's like, okay, I'll just take a couple of breaths and I'm out. And as Luke says, like, I don't know where my body is. Where am I? It's like I'm still completely all around the place. So if you go very deep, take a few minutes, come back, enjoy it. We do things very quickly in this life, I find sometimes, like me talking right now. And maybe this is a good example of, slow does it. So that's me. Guys, I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I'm all open for questions.
No, not at all. I'm just before we okay, so I'm just gonna get you to stop sharing your screen, John, just so we can.
Oh yeah. Great.
And
that's epic.
yeah, one of the things is I have been meditating for many years, and I got to a point where I could no longer listen to guided meditations because of the fact that it kept putting me back into my intellect. It kept the presenter or the narrator would say something, and I would start thinking about why they phrased that term that way, and totally counterproductive. And so what I got to a point was I'm just not going to listen to anyone, because I knew I was getting the results I wanted with stilling the mind. And for me, if I could still my mind for 10 seconds, that was a good meditation. Like, I'm not talking hours. I'm not talking like 10 seconds. If I could just stop thinking for 10 seconds, that was good. That was good. What do they call jumping monkey? They call it
The monkey mind.
Monkey mind. Yeah. So it's just like all over the place, right? So what I found with Nidra is not only did listening to John's, because I have my headsets on, and it's like he's in your head. Quite frankly, it's like he's like right there. And what didn't affect me, didn't pull me sideways, didn't having struggles with the focus. And that is the thing about it is that when I'm regularly meditating, I'm focusing right here on the end of my nose with the air coming in and out, so I can still my mind. Here I'm focusing on different parts of my body, I'm looking at different things, and it just really put me into that relaxing state. We had talked, John, about potentially a demo. I'm not sure if where we went with that.
Yeah, what I was thinking about is if because I have a couple of let's say beginners recording. One of them is 25 minutes. The other one is the one that I previously shared with you,
40.
Luke, the 45-minute one.
Yeah.
So I was planning to provide you with a link, but I've been trying to make this presentation as good as I possibly could, and I forgot to do two things: go to the hairdresser and create the link. So if you wouldn't mind sending me your emails in the chat, I promise you within the next 24 hours.
Well, actually, what I suggest is we'll put your email in the chat and people can contact you.
Whatever suits.
And it's just like, and it's kind of, if they want it, they can, and not to give you guys more work, but just on that.
Yeah.
So John's putting in the chat right now.
If you send me an email there, I will just put the meditations in the Google folder and send it to you, and feel super free to ask me any questions or anything that you think I could help with. Yeah.
There is one question about whether or not, well, did you put your email address in the chat, John?
Oh, sorry. I think I only wrote it to Janice. 1 second, because Janice has a question. So, look, will you moderate the questions, or do I?
No, people can okay. Unmute and ask the question now and that kind of stuff, and there's not that many. So the question is, there we go. Yeah, it went through. Can Yoga Nidra help me get employment?
Well, it's a tricky one, Janice, because what you do with Yoga Nidra is you work on yourself. So it's not like the type of, let's say, things that sometimes you see on YouTube or meditation, like, well, if you focus on it, it will appear. You just have to manifest it and keep hold it. I am not sure if I completely subscribe with that sort of spiritual practice, but what I can tell you that I would use Yoga Nidra for, let's say, if I was gonna coach with you one-on-one, would be, for example, to work on your attitude and your calmness, come up with creative ideas and resources on where could you go, manage your stress around your unemployment, which affects the way that you interview, and Luke can confirm this.
Yes, absolutely.
Provide you with equanimity, give you different perspectives on things, mentally simulate the job interview, release any pent-up tension or emotion that you could have through the situation by simulating it in the dream state. So those are things that not directly can get you a job, but can help you prepare you physically and psychologically and emotionally for the ordeal that sometimes it is to just go out there in the cold of trying to find employment.
And how I would look at it is that anytime that you can get grounded and centered and just be peaceful, it's gonna have an outward effect. It's gonna have effect on everything in your life. If there's that one time throughout the day when we can just stop all the bullshit and all the craziness in our head and be present and be grounded, the benefits are great. And I know Beth wouldn't agree with this at all, would you, Beth? Beth was our speaker last week, John.
Now, what kind of hoo-ha are you talking about?
That's right. Beth spoke last week on mindfulness. So anyway, go ahead, John.
Well, look, it's like I just want to tell Janice that we're kind of in the same situation, you know. I'm not totally and fully unemployed, but the whole COVID thing did away with my main source of income, to the point that I'll be very honest with you, like I have many projects on the table, but at the moment I'm not fully recovered or can, you know, fully meet my financial obligations. But I do not know how could I be having this conversation, you know, peacefully and chilled, if it wasn't, among other things, because I've built the resilience and, let's say, the peacefulness to understand that this is the situation that I need to face. And you know, when we're in a stressful situation, the part of our brains that gets the rush of blood is the most ancient part of the brain. It's more like the shit, accident, what happened. You know, you tense around the situation and you create tunnel vision. Your prefrontal cortex, the one that is supposed to help you solve situation, do creative thinking, plan ahead, strategize, that is cut off, because your system understands that you're in survival mode. So it's fight or flight. So it's very difficult to have new creative ideas, see things that are in front of you when you have this tunnel vision of shit, travel ahead, shit. So just to kind of tie in with what Luke was saying, what we're doing with practices like this is consciously take our mind to a more creative place, consciously take ourselves to a more relaxed place, consciously create a buffer between us and, as you said, the ordeal of unemployment in the midst of a pandemic, and it's cold, and we start adding layers of drama. We allow, like I said before, we can understand that we are the ones experiencing cold and hot, but we are none of the two things. We are the ones experiencing employment and safety, but also we are the ones experiencing uncertainty and ordeals. And we can go through both, which means that we are not any of those. We can navigate them. That doesn't mean that it's not a pain in the ass, but we can. True. Yeah, it's not to deny. It's not to deny the ordeal. It's like, hey, that's there. I'm here, and I choose how to tackle it in a way, you know.
And I would add one more thing to this, and I'm a firm believer of routines and rituals throughout the day to get us through things.
Yep.
So when I am coaching people, when I have coached people specifically in the breakthrough space of the personal one-to-one coach, it's like, you know, what are you doing throughout your week to come back to center, come back to your home? And how do we do that? That's going to be things like working out. It's going to be our meditation. It's going to be our eating habits. It's going to be if we volunteer, if we're working, well, not working, but what is those things that basically help you find home? And last Friday, I kid you not, I received information from the government of Canada saying I owe them $18,000 and it'd be in my best interest to pay it back by December 31st. And it's just like, where the hell do you think I have $18,000?
Me too.
Yeah. And it was my practices that kept me from basically bouncing all over the walls. And it was my practice that kept me centered of my things. And I actually went for a walk. It was like, I don't feel like going for a walk. That was one of the things, but it's part of my rituals, part of my meditations. And at the end of the day, the check that I wasn't supposed to get came anyway. And it was just like, yeah. And it was just like, so I didn't bounce all over the place with the sky is falling and my financial insecurity, because, I kind of maintained my center. And when it turned out that the misunderstanding was I didn't get the check, I didn't feel foolish or like I've gone on a roller coaster ride that was unwarranted on that. John?
Yes, I was gonna add a practice that I haven't seen many people use, for meditation, but I've used it with Nidra, because one of the great things that Nidra has is that not only can you go to, let's say, your center and your happy place, but it gives you a safe way to go to your own private hell and go through it. So one thing that I would do with myself, or depending on the situation and the person, once I get to know them, I would recommend is like, okay, are you terrified of what can come as a consequence of your unemployment? It's like, oh yeah, I'm very tense about it. Okay, let's create a Nidra to deal with that. And then we relax you, we put you in that space, and we create the dream of the worst possible thing that can happen with your unemployment. And you run it like you run a dream, and you unleash any emotional attachments that you have to that. That is not gonna guarantee that you're gonna avoid it, but you don't need to live through it to be emotionally prepared for it. You have released all the samskaras, all the fears, all the attachments, and then you have a space to deal with that, instead of dealing with it while you're having your coffee on the phone call. I don't know. I'll deal with you later. I'm gonna do my Nidra 5 p.m. I'm gonna deal with you, bugger. And then you consciously unite the intention and the action. The intention is to deal with your fear, with your tension, with your uncertainty, and the action is you're gonna meditate on it. You're gonna allow your mind to have a way out.
Cool, very good. We are at the 90 minutes in, and if you would like a outstanding, free, complimentary Yoga Nidra practice exercise, then John's email is in the chat, and what you can do is, if you can save the chat by putting on there's 3 dots at the bottom where you click on that, save the chat, you'll have that there.
I'm gonna put it again just because I'm that persistent. There you go.
Did you just put something else in, John?
Again, Jenny, sorry. I'm just bothering Jenny like 10 times. How do I do this?
What you do is hit everyone, just go above where you see.
Yeah. There you go, everyone.
Okay, there have that.
Cool.
So, we are, like I said, our time is up, and on that note, we're going to bring it to an end. John, thank you so much. What time is it in Spain right now? It must be like 11 o'clock.
Almost. What time is it? Yeah, it's 10:30.
10:30 on that, right? Okay, so you're not going out clubbing now, are you? Because
I'm just gonna go to a party, 100 people. They were all sweating. It's gonna be great.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today and joining us, and I appreciate that you're here, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. And there are regular scheduled webinars next week, so just go to my meetup and you'll see them. And then on the following Monday, before Christmas, I have a very special Here to There show. It's the Christmas edition, and I'm going to be releasing the copy on that hopefully this weekend on that. We're trying to get some musicians to play during that show, and so check that out and stay tuned for it. And I'm just gonna now call it to an end, stop recording, and say you don't have to leave your house, but you can't stay in this room. John, just gonna get you to hold on. Thank you, everyone.